I never thought the place I loved most would become the one that broke me. My name is Elena Brooks, and for 12 years I gave everything to that hospital. Every late night, every missed family dinner, every time I held a patient's hand while they fought for their life, it was all for them. For the people who came through those emergency doors scared, bleeding, and desperate for someone to care. That morning started like any other. I walked into St. Mercy Hospital with my usual coffee in hand, scrubs freshly pressed, ready for whatever chaos the ER would throw at me. I had no idea that by the end of the day, everything I built would be shattered. "Elena, Dr. Hargrove wants to see you in his office right now." My friend and fellow nurse, Sarah, looked nervous as she whispered it. I smiled at her, thinking it was nothing. Maybe a patient complaint or a scheduling issue. I trusted the system. I trusted the people around me. That was my first mistake. Dr. Richard Hargrove, head of the trauma unit, sat behind his big oak desk like a king on his throne. He didn't even look me in the eyes at first. "Elena, there's been a serious incident. A medication error on Mrs. Caldwell last week. She nearly coded because she received the wrong dosage. The records show you administered it." My heart stopped. "That's impossible." I double-checked everything. I always do. He slid a printed log across the desk. My signature was there. But something felt wrong, the timing, the handwriting. I had been covering for another nurse that day, Lisa. She had asked me to sign off because she was running behind. I trusted her. Before I could defend myself, security was already at the door. "I'm sorry, Elena," Dr. Hargrove said coldly. "You're suspended pending investigation. Effective immediately. Hand over your badge." The walk out of that hospital was the longest of my life. My hands shook as I packed my things. Colleagues I thought were friends looked away. Whispers followed me down the hallway. "I can't believe she would do that, she always seemed so dedicated." I sat in my car in the parking lot for over an hour, tears streaming down my face. 12 years. Gone. Just like that. The betrayal cut deeper than any scalpel. How could they believe I would ever put a patient at risk? I had sacrificed holidays, relationships, my own health for this job. And in one moment, it was ripped away. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying every shift, every patient, every decision. The weight of being seen as incompetent, or worse, careless, crushed me. My phone buzzed with messages from family, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. How do you explain that the career you poured your soul into now sees you as a threat? Days turned into weeks. The investigation dragged on. I learned through a former colleague that Lisa had been the one who mixed up the medication. But instead of admitting it, she had altered the logs and pointed the finger at me. Dr. Hargrove knew. He protected her because she was dating his nephew. Politics. Favors. The ugly underbelly of the place I had loved. I felt so small. So broken. I would sit on my couch staring at my old scrubs, wondering if I would ever wear them again. The anger came in waves. Then the sadness. Then a quiet determination that started growing in my chest. I wasn't going to let them destroy me completely. But what I didn't know was that the real test, and my moment of truth, was coming faster than anyone could have imagined. The suspension notice came with a formal letter banning me from hospital grounds. I spent my days applying for other jobs, but the shadow of the accusation followed me everywhere. One interview after another ended the same way. We heard about the incident at St. Mercy. Lisa never reached out. Not once. The woman I had covered shifts for, the one I had comforted after bad breakups, the friend I thought I had, she ghosted me while my life fell apart. That betrayal burned hotter than anything. I started volunteering at a free clinic across town just to keep my skills sharp and my mind busy. The patients there reminded me why I became a nurse, not for the paycheck or the prestige, but for the lives we touch. Still, every night I drove past St. Mercy and felt that ache in my chest. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a rainy Friday evening. I was at home making tea when my phone started exploding with notifications. A massive multi-vehicle pileup on the highway, over 50 casualties being rushed to St. Mercy. The worst trauma surge in the city's history. I froze. My instinct was to run there, to help. But I was suspended. I had no rights, no authority. Still, something inside me wouldn't let me stay home. I grabbed my old medical bag, the one I kept stocked for emergencies, and drove toward the hospital. I told myself I would just offer help from outside if needed. I couldn't sit idle while people were dying. When I arrived, the scene was chaos. Ambulances lined the entrance. Screams, sirens, doctors shouting orders. I saw Dr. Hargrove directing traffic in the ER, looking overwhelmed. Staff were stretched thin. Some nurses were crying from the pressure. I hesitated at the edge of the lot. Then a young paramedic recognized me. Elena? Thank God. They need every pair of hands. Please. That was all it took. I ran inside. The emergency department looked like a war zone. Gurneys everywhere. Blood on the floors. Families begging for news. I didn't ask permission. I simply started working. A young mother with severe internal bleeding was fading fast. I jumped in, assisting the overwhelmed resident, calling out vitals, starting 4 lines, anticipating every need. Another patient, a construction worker with crushed legs, needed stabilization before surgery. I was there, holding pressure, talking him through the pain. Hour after hour, I moved from one critical case to another. 57 trauma victims in total. Some with gruesome injuries, others in shock. I didn't stop. I couldn't. My hands worked on autopilot while my heart raced with a mix of fear and purpose. At one point, I heard Dr. Hargrove's voice cut through the noise. Who the hell is handling trauma bay for? That patient should be crashing. A nurse replied, voice shaking, it's Elena Brooks, sir. She's saving them. Silence fell for a second. Then the work continued. I caught glimpses of Lisa in the corner, looking pale and useless under pressure. Our eyes met once. She looked away first. I kept going. Through exhaustion. Through the whispers. Through the knowledge that I was technically not supposed to be there. Every life I helped save felt like a piece of myself being put back together. By morning, we had stabilized all 57 patients. Not a single one lost on my watch in those critical first hours. The relief in the air was palpable. But the fallout was just beginning. The next few days were a whirlwind. News crews arrived. Families of the victims wanted to know who the miracle nurse was. The hospital tried to keep my name quiet at first, but the truth came out. A brave resident recorded a video on his phone of me working tirelessly and shared it internally. It spread. Patients' families started showing up with flowers and thank you cards addressed to me. One little girl whose father I helped save drew me a picture that said Angel Nurse. Dr. Hargrove had no choice but to call me in. This time, he wasn't sitting behind his desk like a king. He looked small. Defeated. Elena, what you did was extraordinary. The board wants to reinstate you immediately. Full pay. Apology on record. I stood tall, looking him straight in the eyes, the same eyes that had dismissed me weeks earlier. And what about the medication error? What about Lisa? He shifted uncomfortably. We've opened a full review. Lisa has been placed on leave. The logs, they don't add up. The investigation that followed exposed everything. Altered records. Favoritism. Attempts to cover up Lisa's mistake to protect family connections. Public pressure from the saved patients' families made it impossible to bury. Lisa was let go. Dr. Hargrove received a formal reprimand and stepped down from his leadership role. The hospital issued a public apology to me and launched new safeguards against retaliation and favoritism. I returned to work on my own terms. Not as the same woman who left. I came back stronger, wiser, and with clearer boundaries. The colleagues who had turned away now respected me in a new way. Some even apologized. But the real victory wasn't the reinstatement. It was the quiet knowledge that when everything was taken from me, I still chose to show up for others. My suspension tried to break me, but instead it revealed who I truly was. Months later, I stood in the same ER, now busier than ever with new protocols in place. A young nurse came up to me nervously. "Elena, how did you keep going after everything they did to you?" I smiled softly, thinking back on those dark weeks. Because saving lives was never about them. It was about the patients. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's becoming so unbreakable that their attempts to ruin you only make you shine brighter. I still think about that night sometimes. The night 57 families almost lost everything, and how a suspended nurse refused to let that happen. The hospital asked who saved all those patients. The answer was simple. It was me. Closing reflection, music swells warmly, hopeful. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed, pushed down, or told you're not enough, remember my story. Your worth isn't defined by their lies or their systems. When the moment comes, show up anyway. Your light cannot be suspended. It can only be revealed. Thank you for being here with me through this journey. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear that justice and strength can rise from the deepest pain. Until next time, this is Elena, stronger than the betrayal that tried to break her.